Well, this morning we are tracking a front that is slowly going to make its way into middle Georgia. And once it gets here, we're going to see a good bit of wind and a lot of rain passing us by. But when it comes to rain totals, those should be just over 1/4 of an inch for many of us. And the worst part of it is currently impacting places in both Mississippi and Alabama right now, which is where they're actually looking at some kind of severe weather threat. But for us here in the mid-state, you see us in the orange, and that does not indicate severe weather. There's a few different things I want to point out to you guys with this, mainly that even though we're not going to be in the red, there's still a chance we could see some stronger thunderstorms passing us by. Now, I think the timing for us is going to be some point between 2 and about 4, 5, or 6 for this thing to end. If you're in a spot like Thomaston or Forsyth, it's obviously going to be earlier. If you're in Macon, I think in between about 2:30 and 4:30, it's going to be your best chance. And closer towards Dublin and Wrightsville, kind of the end of the afternoon and the early portion of the evening is when that line of storms should move through your area. Now, for everyone after this, it's going to stay windy, and you are expecting just a little bit more rain as you make your way into early Wednesday morning, which is going to be very nice out there. We're going to be looking at clear conditions to finally return. But when it comes to this system, strong wind is going to be the biggest thing over everything else, right? We're still looking at some pretty good chances to see some isolated pockets of heavy rain, but outside of that line of showers passing us by, not really going to be too much of an issue. Neither is thunderstorms or even really tornadoes, although those could not be completely ruled on out. It's going to be the wind over everything else with this, because we could see wind gusts as high as 30 to 35 miles per hour, with some areas potentially seeing it closer towards 40 right along that line. So whenever this eventually does move on through, some very strong winds are going to be possible, not just then, but even afterwards. Because if you look behind where this front's projected to be later this afternoon, you're still going to have some wind gusts around 30 miles per hour. So definitely watch out for that. And everything you need to know right now is basically that we're not going to be seeing too much lightning or thunderstorms developing. But I do want to point out, if you get a little bit of extra sunshine during the later morning and the early afternoon, thunderstorms will be more likely for you. The biggest threat for us is still going to be those winds. Like I mentioned before, tornadoes cannot be completely ruled on out, but the way it stands now, it's not going to be something that's going to be moving through middle Georgia. They are much more likely over towards Alabama and Mississippi. Last thing I want to talk about is going to be your fish and game forecast, brought to you by Harrison's Body Shop. The best time for later on today is going to be right around 6:20.